On Lag BaOmer, April 28th, 2013, a week before I was scheduled to run the Pittsburgh Half Marathon, a blood clot traveled from my heart up this way into my brain, and it had exploded, and it destroyed a major part of my brain. Now, most stroke sufferers lose, on average, about 2 trillion neurons in their brain. But there's hundreds of quadrillions of neurons to replace that and to build that. So what we learned from that is the phenomenal potential that we all have. We all have almost unlimited potential. And from our vantage point, it's unlimited. Even Einstein didn't use all of his brain. They did a study of his brain, and they found, as brilliant as he was, they only used a small fraction of it. So our brain has tremendous power to rebuild itself. I was laying in the hospital bed after I woke up. I couldn't talk. I was completely paralyzed on my right side. My shoulder had popped out of its socket. My hand was like this and swollen up, and I couldn't move it. I was completely paralyzed. I was laying there. Now, most stroke sufferers give up. They want to surrender. And for a little while, I wanted to give up. And then I thought, no. I said giving up would be tantamount to committing suicide. Because even if I lived physically, I wasn't created to live like a broccoli. I was created to fulfill a purpose and a mission in life, to fulfill my potential and to have a purpose. We're all created to fulfill our purpose, and we have free will. So I started thinking, you know, great athletes have setbacks. And they come back, and they're better than they were before. And all those people that lost their limbs in the Boston Marathon, this little stroke is nothing. Just because my doctor said to my family that I have this much chance of dying, and this much chance of living, and this much chance of recovering, didn't mean anything. I said, I'm not a victim. Victims learn helplessness. I'm not helpless. I still have free will. Victims blame other people. They even blame God when things don't go the way they want. Victims want other people to pity them, and they pity themselves. Survivors take responsibility. I said, I'm a survivor. But then I thought for a minute. And I said, no. I said, I'm an achiever. I'm an achiever. And I'm going to fight this. And I'm going to win. And I, with my left side, my good side, I took a big step out of my bed. And I was hooked up to all these monitors and IVs. And bells started going off, and buzzers. And 3 nurses came running in. And I said, I'd like to have permission to be able to walk around my cell, because I felt like I was in prison. Worse than prison, they even let prisoners walk around their cells. Well, we'll talk to the doctor. So the doctor gave me permission to walk around my room. And then within a couple days, they transferred me to a rehab center, and they gave me permission to walk down the hall. And on the 7th day, which was the day I was supposed to run this half marathon. I woke up early that morning. I put on one of my old marathon shirts and my 5-finger running shoes, and I went walking down the hall. I still couldn't talk very well. I went walking down the hall like this, and there were 3 doctors coming down. The head doctor was there, and I said, "Doctor, would it be okay if I go run the half marathon? I'll be right back." He looked at me, he didn't laugh, he just smiled. He said, "Well, give it 3 months." So on the 8th day, now you put this in perspective, most people have strokes, never recover, and they end up in nursing homes and on disability if they live. I said, "I got to get out of this prison." I should have been out on the 7th day, but I couldn't get a ride. I left on the 8th day. And they wanted me to go to speech therapy because I couldn't talk. I still couldn't talk that well. I couldn't think clearly. And they gave me all these rules. They said you have to be under 24-hour surveillance, can't be alone in your house, you shouldn't go back to work because you can't think straight, and so on and so forth. On the 8th day, I got out of there, and the first thing I did that night, I had the custom at that time, every Monday night I would learn at the kollel. My chavrusa is moved away, Rabbi Morgan. So I'm going to go learn Torah tonight with my chavrusa like I always do. And that'll be the start of my speech therapy. And then tomorrow morning I'm going to work, which I did. My wife said, "I'm not going to watch you 24 hours a day. I'm going to work and I have things to do." So the 8th night, Rabbi Morgan thought he saw a ghost. He almost passed out when he saw me. And then he went back to work right away. I didn't even have the strength to open the key to unlock my studio. I just couldn't turn the key, and I didn't have the strength to change my equipment. But gradually I faked it until I made it, and I was starting to be able to talk again, and started to be able to think again, and started reading books, and started learning, and what it was like is my shoulder was still completely paralyzed, okay? And I had no feeling in my arms. It'd be like if your dentist would give you a mega dose of Novocaine from your shoulder down through your fingers. You couldn't feel anything. But I just had to rehab myself. And I said, if I can tell my brain that I can still do the things I did before, my brain will start to believe me. So I started lifting things that I used to do before, and I had to assist myself with the other hand. What's especially challenging about this is that we're used to thinking with our unconscious mind. We don't think about grabbing this, okay? But for me to grab this, I have to really concentrate on it. And for me to put it down, I have to really concentrate on it. Because I'm still training my brain. I'm still rebuilding those neurons to do things that I never did before. So with a lot of trial and error, I learned how to talk to my hand. I said, "Hand, you got to concentrate." And I had to look at it and tell it what to do. And gradually, I was able to build up my strength to a certain extent. The fingers are the last thing to heal on a stroke survivor because they're so complicated. You can't imagine the miracles that go into just using your fingers until you lose the ability to use them. actually, since I couldn't feel anything, one time I almost cut off part of one of my fingers. But anyhow, I started to rehab myself, and I got better and functional within a few months. And then one day, I said, I want to start an organization. I want to start an organization because I think I can offer something in terms of hope and inspiration and courage to other stroke and head injury survivors, plus people in despair. The fact is, until Mashiach comes, we're all in despair to some extent. All of us. So, I was talking to my friend Rabbi Rosenblum, and I was brainstorming all the names for this organization, and he says, well, why don't you call it Yesh Tikva? I said, what's Yesh Tikva mean? He said, Yesh Tikva means there is hope. He said, there's a video by Benny Friedman. And I listened to this video, and I'm sure you guys, many of you were in the choir singing Yesh Tikva, there is hope, and you know what it means, but the whole world out there doesn't know what it means. So, started the organization, and I said, I want to do something amazing to launch this organization. So I Googled amazing question mark, and I came up with this race in Minneapolis. It's called the Polar Dash Race. And I don't know if you're familiar with Minneapolis, but in January, it gets really cold in Minneapolis. And I said, this is it. The Polar Dash Race in Minneapolis, 14 miles. And so I signed up for this race, and the purpose of me doing this race, and I announced this on social media, was to pray for those in despair, to send out a prayer of Yesh Tikva, of hope, to give hope to those in despair, and to inspire stroke survivors in terms of what they could accomplish, what they